Would there be confidence in Russia's diplomatic initiatives at the table, which are heading for failure in the invasion of Ukraine? Now the whole world is discussing this. Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the United Nations, which reached an agreement on the grain crisis in Istanbul, sent good messages to the whole world about the grain needed by international markets. With the agreement, which will also make a great contribution to the occupied economy of Ukraine, countries that have problems with grain will also not suffer from a food crisis. After the agreement ending the grain crisis was signed in Istanbul, Russia's bombing of Odessa, where the grain is located, not earlier than 24 hours later, is one of the actions that experts say shows that the Russians cannot be trusted. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is the most important event of 2022. Significant economic fluctuations due to the COVID-19 pandemic that began in China have affected many large economies on a global scale. As the economic crises caused by the epidemic are coming to an end, Russia's launch of the invasion of Ukraine has brought new crises for the peoples of the world. One of them was the invasion of Ukraine, one of the world's important grain producers. Russia, which is known to resort to non-humanitarian means, also attacked Ukraine's economy and did not allow any shipments to be made from here, hitting the Black Sea coast of Ukraine. Ukraine's Black Sea ports have been closed since the war that Russia launched in February, so that 20 million tons of grain are waiting in warehouses. Blocking Ukraine, where a third of the global wheat needs are met, was increasing the risk of a food crisis. The agreement reached in Istanbul is one of the important steps to prevent this crisis. Arms aid from the United States, NATO, and European Union countries has strengthened Ukraine's extraordinary military resistance and prevented the invasion plan that Russian President Vladimir Putin wants to carry out. Ukraine, whose hand in the war has become stronger, has also begun to strengthen at the diplomacy table. Here is the grain agreement that will end the food crisis in such an environment. Having failed to beat Ukraine on the field, Russia, according to experts, had to sit down at the table for the grain agreement. The bombing of Odessa, on the other hand, was met with a reaction by Ukraine. Therefore, statements of satisfaction had been made by many countries of the world about the agreement. But the fact that Odessa, one of the ports where grain was waiting, was hit by missiles, was an important development of the day. The fact that Russia carried out this attack 24 hours after the agreement was reacted to. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced in a statement on the missile attack on the port of Odessa that the Moscow administration is seeking not to implement the grain agreement signed with the United Nations, Turkey, and Ukraine. This proves only one thing: no matter what Russia says and promises, it will find ways not to implement it, Zelensky said in a video posted on his personal Telegram channel. The enemy attacked the Odessa Sea commercial port with cruise missiles. 2 missiles hit the port's infrastructure, the Ukrainian presidency said in a statement. We call on the United Nations and Turkey to fulfill Russia's obligations for the safe functioning of the grain corridor in the Black Sea, the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry said in a statement about the attack. Reacting to the attack, Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesman Oleg Nikolenko assessed that Russia is the only one responsible for the deepening of the global food crisis. Vasyl Bodnar, the Ukrainian ambassador to Ankara, said, "It is obvious that the agreement with Russia is not even worth the signed paper." Not even 24 hours have passed since Russia's commitments to the UN and Turkey were called into question. Russia is more of a terrorist state than a state, he said. Andriy Yermak, head of the Presidential Office of Ukraine, said, "Yesterday, it was agreed that Ukraine exports grain from the sea. Today the Russians are hitting the Odessa port," he said. Ukraine's President Zelensky, thanks to a video sharing agreement with his 20 million tons of grain will be exported to the international market last year and collected, also noting that harvests will be exported this year already started to gather, as available that they could sell $10 billion worth of grains found, he said. Zelensky said that Russia could be a provocation and would try to discredit international initiatives, adding that they trusted the United Nations. The Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine reports that the ports of Chernomorsk, Odessa, and Yuzhny will work on grain within 2 weeks. In a statement, the ministry announced that the first ships will be able to leave the ports of Chernomorsk, Odessa, and Yuzhny, which will be used for the output of grain, within 4 days. We are ready to send a delegation tomorrow to create a coordination center in Istanbul, he said, noting that all of the ports in question will work within 2 weeks. We hope that other parties are ready to do this quickly. When the center is created, we will be able to open the first port. It was called. There was also a reaction from the European Union and the United States to the bombing of Odessa. The EU strongly condemns Russia's missile attack on the port of Odessa. Josep Borrell, the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Relations and Security Policy, said on his Twitter account, "The fact that a very important target for grain exports was hit the day after the signing of the Istanbul agreements shows once again that Russia has completely ignored international law and commitments, and it should be especially decried," Borrell said. He also used the expression. In a written statement, United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, "The United States unequivocally condemns the Russian attacks on the Ukrainian port of Odessa. The Kremlin continues to demonstrate that it ignores the safety and security of millions of civilians while continuing its attacks against Ukraine. This attack raises serious concerns about the reliability of the fact that Russia will fulfill its promises in the concluded agreement and undermines the efforts of Turkey, the United Nations, and Ukraine to bring the grain to market," he said. The Ukrainian side aims to achieve significant military successes in its occupied country. Moving days will take place in the coming period on the Dnipro River, which passes through the Russian-occupied city of Kherson. While the military patrol boats sent by the United States to Ukraine are displayed on the Dnipro River, military experts note that Ukraine can save the Russian-occupied Kherson by taking control of the Dnipro River. Long-range, mobile rocket launchers, which are among the deck that the United States will send to Ukraine and are capable of hitting deep targets, can help the war bring Ukraine a victory. The analysis published in the New York Times said that control of the Dnipro River, which runs from the border with Belarus to the Black Sea and divides the Kherson region into two in the form of a giant S, could play a key role in the war. Russia has carried out the occupation movement in Ukraine mainly to the east of the Dnieper. But Kherson, an important port and shipbuilding center, is located on the west bank, which means that the Russians will have a hard time maintaining control of the city against the Ukrainian army. Kherson region has been under the occupation of the Russian army since March. If the Ukrainians can take control of the river, it will weaken the state of the Russian defense and make it more difficult to control Kherson, Ben Berry of the International Institute for Strategic Studies said of Kherson's invasion. The Russian Navy has long dominated the Black Sea, but missiles sent by Britain in particular played a key role in the sinking of Russia's flagship Moskva in April and Ukraine's recapture of Snake Island off the coast of Odessa last month. The President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky gave important information about the war. Zelensky, who did not disclose his military goals, as the Russians did, made significant statements in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. Zelensky, who was a comedian before becoming head of state, won the appreciation of the whole world with his honorable struggle at the head of his country.